Well, hello, lovely humans, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here or you got a new piece of jewelry yesterday, today's the day after Christmas, welcome. Bienvenidos. I'm so happy to have you here. In today's video, we are going to be answering some apparel questions for your wedding day. And while you have been dressing yourself for most of your life, I know it gets a little bit dodgy, a little bit confusing when you're trying to figure out what you're supposed to be wearing, what your fiance is supposed to be wearing, what your wedding party's supposed to be wearing, what your guests are supposed to be wearing. It starts getting a little bit more stressful where you're not just in charge of dressing yourself up for arguably one of the most important days of your life, but a couple other people as well. That is why we are focusing on this specifically today. This is actually an excerpt from the live call I do with all of my master plan members once a month. If you are interested, I highly recommend checking it out right here, live hour-long phone calls, because you deserve to have a stress-free wedding day, right? So please let me be your online wedding planner and just direct you through this, because I want you to look up on your wedding day and think, this was worth it and that was easy. Today's video is sponsored by our friends over at Generation Tux. We actually didn't intend for this to be a sponsorship video at all. I just started talking about one of my brother's best friends and his experience with Generation Tux. And after the fact, we're like, this is actually probably gonna be one of the most powerful ways to speak to what the experience is like with Generation Tux. So we chose to pull out this video specifically to highlight how much we love them and how organically I just talk about them all the time. There's a reason we keep coming back to this company over and over again. You'll hear that a little bit later in this video. So without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. Thank you for joining us. Are we surviving the holiday season? My family is currently rocking one of those colds that like it's just a dry cough, but it's super irritating. So I'm going to warn you ahead of time. I've got my mandatory Stanley here right next to me, should I need to stop and hack up a lung for a minute. But thank you so much for being here. Super, super excited to have you. I know that we are probably dealing with a lot of newcomers with that, the big rush as we're getting towards engagement season. Who's prepared? Who's excited? Prepared. You're already here. You're likely already engaged. Where am I going with this? You can see that the cold is really doing wonders with the two brain cells we're rubbing together. If you guys are new here, here's how this works. Obviously, I'm here to answer some of your questions. We have a lot of these that are pre-submitted, but we will also probably have room at the end for some open style Q&A. If you have questions as we're going, use that chat box like crazy. We've got two employees here that are from Wolfer & Co., Rebecca and Katie, that are here to send out links to things that I've talked about in other videos. I want to be careful to not repeat everything that exists outside of this in another video, but also to touch on and still give responses to the questions that you have. And should you want to investigate further, you can go into diving deeper into that content. That's half of what we do is we really want to facilitate finding answers and responses for you that get you your answer as quickly as possible. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right on into your questions. We are kind of focusing on attire and wardrobe, at least for the first part from what we have sent in. Okay, can the attire be more dressed up while the overall event feels more casual? I think it's a matter of terminology here. Yes, you can be more dressed up if the entire event feels more casual. I don't know what you mean by feels more casual. Is it the juxtaposition? Is it that it's really minimal? And so we kind of have like elegance and minimalism that are juxtaposing one another. Or like we had a client that wanted a black tie event, but wanted food trucks. I loved that. Like I loved it. Her mom was not for it. Her mom was like, people are going to be in ball gowns, like standing next to a running food truck with like a really loud generator in the background. And the bride was like, yes, absolutely. I think it also depends on, you know, if you say feels more casual, does that mean the overall pacing of the event, the overall structure of it? Does that mean the timeline? Does that mean the way it appears? There's a lot that you can do to kind of play with this. Juxtaposition is like one of the best words of all time. If you really want to play with juxtaposition, you can totally do that here. Get more dressed up, but have more casual things happening. To have black tie with lawn games. Some people may not want to participate, right? If they rented an extremely expensive tuxedo, they might be less inclined to just jump on out there and play some cornhole. But you might find that people really enjoy doing something like that. It feels very Gossip Girl, right? Where they're all dressed up and they go do silly things. How's that for a summary of the show Gossip Girl? Not a great one, actually. Best online store for bridal and bridesmaid dresses for those on a budget. I can't speak to you necessarily a lot for bridal dresses online on a budget. If you guys have shopped online for dresses, do me a favor and drop those in the chat. I am definitely a fan of going in person to trying stuff on. I think getting it on your person, taking a look at it physically before committing to it can be really helpful. Even if you do choose to go a different route where you're ordering something online, I still think you should really try a dress on if you're wearing a dress for your wedding day. Like really get it on your body. Okay, someone said Azazi. That's right. Can you get wedding dresses from Azazi? Look at me. I should know this, right? I don't shop for a lot of wedding dresses though. Bridesmaid dresses, however, I have tons of experience with. I did a whole video where I tried on a bridesmaid dress from every popular company. And my favorite, hands down, is Kennedy Blue. Because, and we've actually spoken with is he the founder or just the CEO? The bigwig at Kennedy Blue. And he's talked about the value of their zippers, of the lining. He's like, it's the best quality that you can find for the lowest pay that we can offer, or the lowest amount that we can offer. They try to find that perfect convergence of the two. So in this video, I actually put on dark colored biker shorts just as like a example to see if they would show through, and some of them really did, some didn't. Some dresses were itchy, some were not, and I tried to keep them really similar both with color and neckline style based on what they had to offer. So, and I think I was early pregnant in this video, so if you have bridesmaids that are looking for maternity dresses, that's a great option as well. It still ended up being Kennedy Blue as my favorite, but others have really good style, like Revelry. Their style is unparalleled. Their pricing reflects that. I would think that Azazi's pretty good. Kennedy Blue is very good. Less of a fan of some David's Bridal stuff just because it's so thin. When should I start shopping for my wedding dress? Okay. On the master plan timeline, in the planning timeline, I believe it says if you're looking at a 12-month engagement, you're going to want to start doing that about 8 months out. Bear in mind that this time frame was written pre-Rona and shipping delay issues. So I still think that holds true. You should start shopping. But when you are shopping, you need to ask specific and intentional questions. What is the lead time on a majority of your gowns? How long from when I make the choice to when the dress is in my hands? What does that time frame look like? Do you have an alterations guide that I recommend taking a peek at that could kind of help with some of this? Because if you work backwards from the day you start wearing your dress, or the day you wear your dress, not start wearing it, the day you wear your dress, the alterations that need to happen before that, the undergarments that you need for the alterations, how long alterations take, how long shipping takes, then it kind of dictates when you should be ordering it. See, when we kind of work backwards like that, it gives you a better vision of what that time frame looks like. So I still stick to the 8-month rules when you should definitely start shopping, but have active conversations with where you are shopping to confirm these details. Just remember, this planning timeline is everything that I've done for almost a decade of planning weddings and putting all of this into this timeline. But there will be some flexibility and there will be some shifting to this, especially because different shops are going to have different lead times depending on where their dresses are coming from. So start around the 8-month mark. You could probably start it a little sooner. I'd be cautious to start much later than that. 6 months, I think, is still within that time frame. But the shorter your time frame is, the less specific you can be about all of your requirements. So that's something to keep in mind. All right. Best reliable online wedding dress shops, even on Etsy. Shopping for a unique dress is hard, and I keep getting shops sending me paper-thin, cheap fabric dresses that I thought would be legit. I live in an area where shops are limited, so I am relying on shopping online. I think that this is really hard. Someone just dropped in the chat that Azazi does have some bridal dresses, which could be a great option. I would go with something that is a name you recognize, something that's reputable. I think this would be a fantastic thing to ask in a Facebook group or over in the forums that we have here in the master plan specifically, because then those live on forever. So whoever responds to you there, or you might find some previous responses that share those as well. Those are helpful. I would consider, especially because you keep running into this, I would consider trying to find a local alteration specialist or a local tailor. My husband was able to get a custom suit from scratch. We didn't bring a suit in and then have it altered or tailored to fit his body. It was a custom suit from scratch. The tailor drove up to LA because we lived in Southern California, came back with samples, and was his suit, I think all things considered, man, I knew I should have written this down, but I had no idea that I was going to start an entire huge business off of this. It was less than $300 for a custom suit. And this is a tailor that my family had been going to for years. My mom got all of her mother of the bride, mother of the groom dresses done through this guy. So if I would strongly consider starting to look in that avenue. I feel like tailors and seamstresses and alteration specialists are such a lost art. So finding the right one could be a really good idea. Oh yes, Kennedy Blue has bridal dresses too. See, I always focus on the bridesmaid stuff and I completely forget that they have bridal ones. I would consider or look into having someone either custom make it or taking one of those gowns with a cheaper fabric or finding something in a shop on some sort of sample sale and getting it altered, or seeing if get more creative with this, because I don't have a lot of faith in stuff like Etsy for something like this. Why? Because I purchased a wedding dress off of Etsy and had the same exact experience. I know what that's like. So stick with names you know, Kennedy Blue, Azazi, those are great ones. Many of the other bridesmaid dress manufacturers might have an option like this as well, but don't forget to look into small businesses like a tailor or a seamstress. What is your take on doing reverse wedding attire, meaning all the guests wear white or black and the bride and groom wear navy, blue, and gray? I think that this is a vibe. When it's pulled off correctly and done with intention and done to be a fun thing, I love it. But it's all in how it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? So if it's like, don't come to our wedding if you're not wearing white. Okay. But hey, we want to go wacky. We want to try something new. We're going to do the exact opposite of what tradition says and invite everyone to wear white. That's super fun. Bear in mind that not everyone might adhere to it. They might miss that. They might forget that. They might lose that piece in your invitation suite. I think you're going to have to communicate this over and over and over again. But when it works, it makes for excellent photos. So it requires a lot of heavy communication up front, a lot of follow-up, a lot of clearly explaining what we're doing, saying it graciously, saying it with fun, but be prepared for it not to be 100% success. All right. This is not Diddy's white party. People will forget. And that's okay. Just, I think hopefully most of the photos and that vibe that you're going for will be achieved. Except for when someone goes way out of the desired colors and then you kind of get yourself not that exact effect that you wanted. What are your top suit vendor recommendations? Are they all basically the same or are there ones that stand out? You guys, there's a reason that I continue to work with Generation Tux. And I don't have to. There are plenty of other online suit retailers who offer similar things to what Generation Tux does, but none of them with the customer service, the caliber, the intention. They've got this fantastic method of like when they send out suits and ties and everything, like when it comes, okay, I'm going to butcher explaining that. I've literally visited their warehouse. We actually get to decide at the end of the year if we want to keep working with them over and over again. And we continue to go, you know what, this is one of our favorite vendors. They have an amazing customer service team. My favorite story about Generation Tux is actually super near and dear to my heart. My brother's best friend, one of two best friends, is quite short. And his legs are extremely short for his body. And they both went to a Christian college. So as you can imagine, they were in a lot of weddings. And something that he frequently ran into and issues he frequently had with pants were them being too long. Like he knows the song and dance. He was like, I know it's going to be too long. I know it's not going to work. So he actually contacted Generation Tux, their customer service, and was like, hey, I have issues with pants not fitting. I have legs the size of someone who's 4'11", even though he's taller than that. Again, just really weird proportions. Bless him. He's totally upfront about it. He's like, it's weird. Okay. I'm aware of it. And they're like, no problem. They tailored them before they even sent it to him. And he said it's the first time he's ever put on a suit and felt like it actually worked for his body. It's the first time he put on a suit and he's like, I feel like a man in this suit. I don't feel like I borrowed my dad's pants. They tailored them before they even sent them to me. And it just was like it was a really sweet experience because I love Jong. He is really special to our family. And to know that he like keeps running into this and keeps feeling like, oh man, I got asked to be a groomsman. So like, I know I'm going to just like look awful and hate the way it feels. It's the same experience that so many bridesmaids have in different dresses. And they're like, oh, I don't want to wear that ugly thing, which is why for the gown side of things, we've seen a lot more people be innovative about it. We've seen a lot more people offer different style of dresses, different style of tops. Everyone can pick whatever they want, something that just all is the same color scheme. But we don't really see the same being true for the guy side, for those wearing suits in the wedding party. So that's what I love about Generation Tux is they get really intentional. There's an entire tailoring department that they can do stuff like this. So everyone who puts on a suit for the event feels good in it, as opposed to we haven't worked with. My husband wore Men's Warehouse for his best friend's wedding. He looked like a stuffed sausage. Listen, I think he's the most attractive man on the planet. I'm spending the rest of my life with him. I like him. I like the way he looks. This was not a good look. It was not a good look. And they didn't have any options for him. It's just like, well, you get what this is, and sorry if it doesn't look good on your body. So I think that the same intention for dresses should be applied for suits. I think that if someone's going to put on a suit for an event, they should feel good. Relatable stuffed sausage experience here, right? Because like, if they just get swallowed or they look like they borrowed the dad's suit for prom, it's just, I want them to feel just as good as those wearing dresses do. So that's why I keep coming back. That's why I keep coming back to Generation Tux, because every time my husband puts on that versus a Men's Warehouse suit, Generation Tux versus a Men's Warehouse suit, there is no contest. Like, he is way more attractive. in that Generation Tux suit than he is in the one that shall not be named, even though I already named it. We do have a 20% off code for Generation Tux. It should be BP Jamie, and it might expire at the end of this year. So keep your eye out for that if you are looking into that. And I think that applies to everyone who orders. And if you get 5 people to order a suit, you get your rental for free. The wedding couple does. If you get 7 people to order a suit, you get to keep the suit. Very cool. I don't know if anyone else does that. I know they do free, but I don't know if they do keep the suit. I could be wrong. Oh, Maria said, because my bridal party has varying budgets, I gave them a dark green colorway given in my Yuletide bridal boxes. Oh, cute, as swatches. Yes, super, super smart. Wanted to give them a tangible, cute swatch. This is a really good idea. Another great idea is paint swatches from your local hardware store, because everyone can go to the hardware store and pick up that paint swatch, right? If everyone's all over the place, that helps tremendously. If you are giving them a wide variety of places they can look. If you're giving them one store to look at or one company to look at, narrowing that down to a precise color is great. But if you're giving them the option of multiple companies to look at, having a swatch, a physical swatch to refer to, especially because screens are different, lighting changes things, something that they can take with them as they try this stuff on is very helpful. After trying different sample bridal shops, it looks like a bridal gown from David's Bridal is the most cost-effective move. No doubt I'll need tailoring, but I'm unsure of how to get the most bang for my buck. Do you have any recommendations for budget-friendly tailoring options for bridal gowns? We already talked about the alterations guide. We're going to either drop it again or you can scroll back up in the chat just a little bit. Trying to figure out how to respond to this. Do you have any recommendations for budget-friendly tailoring options for bridal gowns? I think that a lot of times David's Bridal will push you directly into their alterations department. I think it'd be worth getting a second opinion. No, this is not a medical diagnosis, but it might be worth going to someone who has more flexibility in their time, gives you a more hands-on experience, and does not necessarily mean they will be more expensive. In fact, my preference has always been to take the dress from David's Bridal to someone else. Instead of just I like adding a little personalization to it. This is your wedding dress, right? I don't want you to feel like a number. I don't want you to be stuffed into somebody's schedule. I've seen more intention and more attention to detail with a private tailor and a private seamstress than I have with David's Bridal. If you want to get the best bang for your buck, I still recommend doing some price comparison, because it may not be more expensive to go outside of that, and you can get something that better works with your schedule. David's Bridal, this is all they do. So they're just stacked. So it's appointment after appointment. So I just want to make sure that you not only get the best bang for your buck, but also get a good emotional experience as well, and a logistical scheduling experience. We are 2 brides going for Victoriana articles, especially collector's items for the Victorian period theme. How can we both look bridal without being too matchy, but also not looking like a bridesmaid, even if there is a pop of blue in our outfits, as well as on the bridesmaids? I don't know enough about the Victorian period garb to be able to help with any sort of delineation. I would just lean into something that's more, I'm hesitant to say costumey in manner, but there are probably some pretty distinct clothing looks or nods to articles of clothing that you can still find in dresses today. So for example, can someone wear long sleeves, right? Because that, or with buttons on, is that Victorian period? I feel like it is. Again, I'd have to look to it to speak to it a lot more specifically. So something that gives that, for lack of a better term, old-timey feel, but still has a fresh perspective on it, I think could be great. Or maybe one of you says, I'm picking sleeves. The other one says, I'm picking a color. Because have you seen some of those high-colored wedding dresses? Divine. Maybe each pick something that you like, something that draws you to that clothing in general, and then divvy that up. So that way you can still have a pop of blue in your outfit. The bridesmaids can have those, but you have this essence, this difference, this one piece of the dress overall that is inherently yours. We are looking into Men's Warehouse, but now I'm considering switching. I think you'll find cost comparison wise, it's pretty on par with each other, but with that 20% off, it really does push it over the edge if you are considering going to Generation Tux. I mean, I've heard great things about a lot of different suit companies, but I think it's the customer service for me, for Generation Tux, that just makes it unparalleled. Their intentionality, how kind they are, how much they care about the person who's wearing the suit. And if it's the same cost and it's super easy to do, no one has to go in and get measured. Y'all seen that episode of Friends where Joey's tailored, things get uncomfortable? So I think it's worth looking into for sure. We're using the wedding as an excuse for him to buy a nice new suit he can have for years, and it will get tailored to fit just right. Will be an investment piece that we aren't counting towards the wedding budget. Hey, that's smart. That's exactly what we did with my husband. We're like, hey, you're going to wear this again. I'm not wearing my dress again. So like, let's be intentional about this. So that we did the same thing. Just with the white versus blue question, especially with the blue bridesmaids. Oh, I think it'll be fine, Kate. I think it'll weave everything together really nicely, actually. I don't think you're going to look like bridesmaids. One, because people know who you are, right? Two, because you're probably going to be in the center. And three, because I'm sure your dress is going to have a lot more elaborate touches than the bridesmaid dresses are, unless you are planning on going thematic with all of them. I think it's going to be less of an issue. Maybe you'd only do a pop of blue on yourself and more on the bridesmaids. There's ways that you can kind of play with that. That'll make it feel different. Okay. What are the best places for comfortable and fashionable heels/flats for the wedding day? I can't find/afford the nice ones. How can I make uncomfortable shoes more wearable? Oh, see, I am a huge fan of comfortable footwear. I care about my toe box. Do y'all even know what a toe box is? So I probably wouldn't give the best advice for wearing uncomfortable shoes other than practicing in them. The more you wear them, ideally, the more they stretch and the better you will get at walking in them. And then you can kind of prepare for, do you need pads like at the back? Do you need any sort of blister protection? So that's the best advice I can give you for making uncomfortable shoes work. If you need them stretched, I know the bag, the Ziploc bag with water, stick it in the freezer and expand so it kind of stretches it a little bit. As far as best places for comfortable shoes, where are you guys getting your shoes? Because it's been so long, I forgot where I got mine, but I wore flats. Do you have any general tips for veils? Does certain fabric photograph better or hold its shape better? Any tips for easily putting it in and taking it out for photos while also having it stay in place? Any particular combs you would recommend? Plastic, metal, etc. Okay. General tips for veils. Practice walking in it. Practice putting it on your head and wearing it for an extended period of time. If it's anything longer than your fingertips, practice sitting in it. I mean, even a fingertip veil, you might need to practice sitting in, because those are the kind of things that you just like, you don't realize. Usually it's the longer ones that can be a big problem. I've told this story before. And actually, it was Tori Kelly's wedding. She had this gorgeous cathedral veil. And unfortunately, she's the bride I had to learn this on. She was walking and it had beading in it. And she was like, this is way heavier than I thought it was going to be. And I was like, oh no, because I didn't even know she had a veil. I had no clue. All of a sudden it just came out and I was like, oh, that's gorgeous. That's huge. And it was very heavy. So she's walking and all of a sudden it snags on a planter. And I'm like, oh, snap. I mean, I'm going to level with you guys. This is one of the biggest weddings of my career to date. And I was like, no. I cannot have the bride lose a part of her scalp as she's walking down the aisle. So I run up behind her like the bridge troll that I am and lift her heavily beaded veil out of this planter and just like behind her until she gets to a safe space where it's just grass and she can keep her scalp intact. So walk with it, try it on, sit with it. Get the feel of the weight of it on your head. As far as fabric photographing better, I don't know. I can't really speak to that specifically. But I do know that having touches of something on it, like little pearls, obviously will catch the light. That's really pretty. Any tips for easily putting it in and taking out for photos? I've never been asked this question, but actually, yes, while also having it stay in place. I prefer the combs. So this is going to kind of answer your second question at the same time of, or your final question at the same time of this one. The combs that have, they're metal and they're almost loops at the end, because those, I feel like I need to turn my head to show you. Those have loops to stick bobby pins through. Those are my favorite. I love those above all others. The plastic ones are great, but you can't really, you cannot bobby pin them in place. So that's what I prefer with veils in general. Metal loops, pinning it in, and you're going to want to pin it in probably, I mean, you almost can't overdo it, but I mean, I'm sure you could at a certain point. The limit does exist with the amount of bobby pins your head can actually hold. But if you can do 2 on each side, maybe 3, maybe 4 if you need to, that'll really kind of lock it into place, especially if you can kind of cross them over like this. So if we can get 2 on the top on each side, That'll really secure it, and then make sure someone is there to kind of wiggle those out and get those out for you later. That's the easiest way. Oh, why do I seriously want to turn my head even though I'm not going to be able to show you on the back of my head. I wish I had a comb. Okay, so because why would I have a comb just hanging out? A bridal comb for a headpiece. So you know how it's curved, right? To like mold. Here I am turning my head again to mold to the back of your head. A lot of people think that you just slip it in like that. It depends on the design. So if there is any sort of like beading detail on the top, you kind of have to slip it in like that. If there is not, and it's just the comb, you're actually going to want to flip it upside down. Hopefully I'm explaining this well. And almost dig it into your hair like this, and then have the veil pop up and over like that. So you're going to flip it in upside down. The veil is going to come up and over out the top of the comb as opposed to the different direction, because then it will give you a little bit more height, a little bit more oomph. It'll mask any bobby pins that you have holding it in place. Just to reiterate, this only works for those that don't have any sort of beading or anything on them, but it's just more like the tulle fabric specifically. Guys, thank you so much for watching. How about you? Are you going to ask your guests to wear a specific color to your wedding? Do you like that? Do you think it's tacky? Do you think it's cool? Do you think it's fun? Let me know down in the comments. I always love hearing from you guys. I personally would love to go to a wedding where they had attire requirements like that, but I also really like shopping for new clothes. So any excuse I have to go buy a specific outfit, I'm on it. Let me know in the comments. If you haven't done so already, jump on down there, hit that like button, and subscribe to this channel for more tips and tricks for the modern day bride. And until next week, bye guys!